Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million kalpas. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. Now we are at the part of the Heart Sutra where it talks about the fruit of practicing this prajna wisdom. That means we have already gone through the main part of the teaching previously. So now we are at the Heart Sutra lecture notes, section 15. The text is, by way of prajna paramita, the bodhisattva's mind is free from hindrances. With no hindrances, there is no fear. Free from all distortion and delusions, ultimate nirvana is reached. Okay, so let us look at the first part of this sentence. By way of prajna paramita, the bodhisattva's mind is free from hindrances. With no hindrances, there's no fear. So he talks about one of the benefits, an important benefit of the prajna wisdom, to be free from hindrances and free from fear. And eventually we will reach ultimate liberation. We are going to examine in quite a bit of detail how prajna is going to help us be free from our fears and attain liberation. But the quickest way, the most direct way, is the following. There's no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, or mind. The five skandhas are all empty. So we have learned this previously. When we truly understand this, we are cleared of a concept of a self, cleared of a concept of a persistent self. And that is source of all of our afflictions, all of our kleshas. And when we are cleared of the concept of a self, or in Buddhism we call it no self or non-self, then there's no trouble, no problem. We are truly free. Without a self, who is there to fear? Who needs to be liberated? Right? Now, it is easy to misunderstand this and say, well, are you saying that we are all illusions? We don't exist? Is that a nihilistic view of people in the world? No, that would be mistaken. We are free from the mistaken concept of a persistent self. But every moment, at this very moment, there is an experience. You are having an experience, right? If your mind is in the present moment, clearly and completely, clearly means you're free from all delusions. You're not mistaken by the conscious imaginations. We are directly in touch at this moment and every moment with the totality of reality. Then we are already free. There is no fear, there's no greed, there's no anger. When we are at the state of non-self. So that is the direct experience of applying the prajna wisdom. That is the state of perfect clarity of mind, perfect peace of mind. But admittedly, that is not easy to grasp. We are so trapped in all the thinking and beliefs and point of view and habitual thought patterns that our conscious mind has been working on for ages and ages. It is not easy to directly experience the non-self. So, let us step back and look at how prajna wisdom can help us eliminate our fear. The line says, by way of prajna paramita, the Bodhisattva's mind is free from hindrances. With no hindrances, there is no fear. Okay, so let's look at fear. Fear is certainly a big part of human experience. What kinds of fear do we have? And where do fears come from? Well, according to what we have already learned, fear is an unpleasant experience, right? So it's a form of dukkha. Now, dukkha comes from hindrances. Hindrances come from our karma. Our karma comes from our attachment. Our attachment comes from our ignorance. That is something we have already learned previously. But let us take it a little bit slower, a step at a time. What kind of fears do we have? Well, in the Western society, Westerners, what do you fear? Well, let us guess. Maybe some people are afraid of ghosts, monsters, something scary, yeah? We may be afraid of the unknown. If we are going to a new place, a foreign place, or we are taking on some endeavor that we have never done before, there may be fear of the unknown. There's also the fear of rejection, right? We don't like to get rejected, and there's a fear of that. We may have fear of failure. We may have fear of others laughing at us. or disapproving us and contradicting us, criticizing us. Yeah. Another kind of fear is fear of changes. Yeah. A lot of time we like to stay in our comfort zone. And we have fear of separation from people you care about, from people you love. And we certainly may have fear of death. So these are just some of the common fears that people have. Now, Shifu coming from a Chinese culture, let me list some of the fears that Chinese may have. Of course, these are stereotypes, but hey, they are very real for many people, right? Chinese may fear snakes, cockroaches, worms, little bugs. They may fear that they are never good enough for their parents. They may fear low grades from school. They may have fear about meeting girls or meeting boys. They may have fear about not making enough money. And they certainly have the fears we have talked about: ghosts, the unknown, rejection, and so on and so on and so on. Okay? So, we all have fears. Now, the Heart Sutra here says there's a linkage, a relationship between fears and hindrances. What is hindrances? The Chinese word for hindrance is 挂碍. Now, 挂 and 爱 are two words. 挂 can mean attachment. So, from attachment, from hanging onto things, from being concerned with certain things, hanging on to, being concerned with attachment. So that's a form of hindrance. I, the second word, means to hinder, to blockage, the obstacle. Is it an obstacle? So our attachment, our concern, our hanging on to, holding on to things are the blockage, the obstacle, the hindrance. Okay, they become the hindrance. Now, they are physical hindrances. Like, physically, things are not going well. Hindrances with people, dealing with people, obstacles in an organization, wanting to carry through an event, and you run into some obstacles. All right. So while we're doing things, so trying to complete our tasks, interact with people in this world, we run into obstacles, hindrances. There are mental hindrances, like our emotions and feelings. Our emotions and feelings can become the hindrance that hinder us from doing what we want to do, hinder us from thinking clearly, hinder us from making progress, hinder us from looking into the future. But there's also another type of mental hindrance, and that is our perspectives, our point of view. Our point of view. So now, if you remember our previous teaching, we keep coming back to the same system or the same pattern. There is the point of view. There's the way we perceive things, our perspective. When that perspective, when that point of view is of the type that we call attachment, then it is a hindrance. And when we have these attachments, then we have fear. Why? Because we may be afraid of losing what we're holding on to. We may be afraid that this, what we are attached to, will change. We may be afraid, and so on and so on. So now we should contemplate on this, the relationship between what we are attached to. It could be a person, it could be a state of things, state of affairs. It could be the way things are right now. It could be a mental feeling. Whatever we are attached to becomes a hindrance. And from the hindrance comes our fear. Now, to be free from fear, what do? How can we apply what we have learned so far already to sort this out? That is, how do we apply the prajna teachings previously learned in the Heart Sutra to remove the suffering of fear, to eliminate fear? Well, we already know that suffering comes from creating certain type of karma, right? And karma comes from attachment, or attachment comes from ignorance. Ignorance, karma, suffer. Ignorance, karma, dukkha. And this ignorance is a form of attachment. That is the ignorance that leads us to our actions, mental and physical actions, that creates the suffering that is what we call fear. So in previous sections, notably 11, where we talk about the 12 links of interdependence, we have gone through the mechanism of ignorance, karma, consequences, or dukkha, right? We also talk about the Four Noble Truths in section 12. 12, 13, and 14. Right. So please review those sections, the lectures on those sections. So to remove fear, the Four Noble Truths tell us to remove any kind of dukkha. We follow the Eightfold Path. What's the Eightfold Path? Right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right samadhi. We just look at the first four. Right understanding. Right understanding is the right view. The right view counters the wrong view. The wrong view is the view of attachment, whatever we are attached to, whatever we are holding on to, right? So we got to reverse that, change our perspective, establish the right view, the right understanding. And then, because of the false views, the ignorant views, the attachment views, we have developed a thought pattern. We're so used to thinking this way. And to counter that thought pattern, we need to have the right thought, the second of the Eightfold Path. From right view comes the right thought, or the right thought pattern. We use the right view to think about the situation in a different way. That is opposite to what we used to think. So the right view and the right thinking, which will help us eliminate that feeling of fear. Okay? And because of the right view and the right thought, the right thinking process, then our speech and physical actions will be creating the right karma that will steer us away from suffering. In this case, the suffering of all kinds of fear. So we're going to see this system over and over again. Right view, right thinking process, right action, right understanding, right thought pattern, right action. Okay? Remember, Shifu always emphasized the ABC of our Buddhist practice. A is to acquire. Acquire is to acquire the right view. Acquire the right view, right? And 2 is absorb. The B is absorb. Absorb means we think about it. We think about it, we internalize it, we understand it deeply. And C is cultivate. Cultivate is to put it into action, put it into speech and action. So that corresponds to the system as well. Right view, right thinking, and right action. Okay? Now, all of that sounds kind of philosophical. Let us take a case study. Previously, we mentioned examples of fear, like fear of rejection. Let us look at rejection and how we can apply what we have just said to remove the fear of rejection. First of all, we need to establish the right understanding about rejection. And what is the wrong understanding of rejection? The wrong view. Yeah? Rejection is bad, it's terrible, it's embarrassing, it's humiliating. So that's why I'm afraid of it. Yeah? Fear of rejection. But let us look at some examples, real examples. You have heard of J.K. Rowling? She is the author of the Harry Potter books. Yeah? She spent 6 years working on her first book as an unemployed single mother who was living on government benefits. Her own publisher rejected her dream to become a children's book writer. She said, the publisher said, you can't support yourself this way. There's no way. And in fact, 12 publishers turned her down. Turned down her book, Harry Potter book, before the book was finally accepted by the publisher Bloomsbury. And the rest is history. Yeah, she was rejected by 12 publishers. And people tell her, no, you can't make a living this way. Okay, Stephen King, I think people are quite familiar with the name. His first book, Carrie, was made into a famous movie as well, was rejected by publishers 30 times. The first book, imagine you've written your first book and 30 publishers rejected you. But look where Stephen King is now. Yeah? Jack Ma, he is one of the richest person in China. He is an entrepreneur, the founder of Alibaba. He was rejected from Harvard 10 times. He wanted to go to Harvard. He was rejected 10 times. And then after he completed college, notably not at Harvard, I think, he was rejected by all 30 jobs that he applied for. Rejected by all 30 jobs he applied for. He even applied to work at the KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. There were 23 jobs. There were 24 applicants. And guess who didn't get a job? Jack Ma. He then eventually set up his own company, but he wasn't able to get any investors from Silicon Valley to fund him. Now he's worth over 28 million pounds. Abraham Lincoln, the US president, he had so many failures in his life. He was defeated running for state position in 1832. In 1838, defeated to be the House Speaker. 1843, defeated for nomination to Congress. 1846, lost re-election to Congress. 1856, defeated for U.S. Senate. 1858, defeated for nomination for Vice President. And 1858, defeated for U.S. Senate. And in 1860, he was elected the President of the United States. Walt Disney, his editor told him he lacked imagination, had no good ideas. He received 300 rejections from bankers because nobody believed that you can make any money with animation. That's just a crazy idea, Walt Disney. And Walt Disney said, all the adversity I have had in my life, all my troubles and obstacles have strengthened me. You may not realize it when it happens, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing in the world for you. And those stories occur over and over again. Famous people throughout history. So, fear of rejection. Let us turn our perspective around. In fact, rejection is good. It's something we need in our life. If we get immune to rejection, we can truly go for what we want. Yeah? So, solution, go get rejected. All right, so we change our perspective about rejection being a bad thing into rejection is actually really good for us. Builds character, builds stamina, builds tenacity. Rejection is good for us. And then our thought pattern must follow this way. And let's go get rejected. Let us look at a second example. Failure, our fear of failure. Again, let's take a few examples. Beethoven was criticized for being awkward at playing violin, and then he became deaf at 42 years old. Imagine a music composer becoming deaf at the prime of your life. Michael Jordan, some consider him the greatest basketball player in history. He was cut from his high school basketball team for lacking skills. And Michael Jordan said, I missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I have lost almost 300 games. On 26 occasions, I have been entrusted to take the game-winning shot and I missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeeded. Steve Jobs, Fred Astaire, Charles Darwin, these people all have changed the world. Vincent van Gogh, I have put their story in the notes. You can read it yourself. These are examples taken from the internet. Now, so how do we view failures in life? Similar to rejections, failures may even be necessary for our greater achievements. And that has been tested time and time again. One last example from the Chinese modern history. Dr. Sun Yat-sen, he was a physician. He wanted to overthrow the Qing dynasty, which will be the last dynasty in China after thousands of years. He wanted to establish a republic, form of modern government. He led revolutions and failed 10 times. On the 11th time in 1911, he was successful. He became the father of modern China. However, even when he was able to overthrow the old government, his effort to establish a peaceful China where people is not poor, his dream would not come to fruition while he was alive. He passed away in 1924, and he experienced many failures even after his success in 1911. Now, his dream that every Chinese is fed will not be realized until 100 years later. In 2021, extreme poverty was eradicated in China. So, I have a question for you. Why was it that the 10 failures Dr. Sun experienced, quote unquote, did not count? Why did the 11th time where he succeeded, why did that one count? Why? What does that say about the nature of failure and success? Let us stop here and reflect on what we have learned in this lecture. We come to this point at Heart Sutra where we have pretty much completed the main part of the Prajna wisdom teaching. And now we are trying to see, by applying the Prajna wisdom, we can gain these benefits, removing obstacles, removing our fear, and attaining liberation. So we have examined the different kind of fear that people may have. And we also mentioned the core way to turn our suffering, like fear, around is this 3-part system. Change your view, change your thinking, and then put that into action. That means how you deal with issues in life. And we examined 2 cases of the many different kinds of fear and how well-known, famous, successful people deal with their rejection and failure. Now, here's another question. What are the common qualities of these people that enable them going through all these rejections and failures, eventually becoming the person that we know them to be? What are the qualities? Do you have these qualities? Let us examine that in the next talk. Let us conclude our talk with the dedication. May the merits of our deeds reach every part of the world. Sentient beings, large and small, all attain enlightenment.